This is a facade which was clearly added later. The original church was built in the 5th century by a body of heretics called the Arians. They eventually were the Goths. These were Goths that built this. And the Goths, they were barbarians who had invaded Rome. And when they finally were put out of Rome, Pope Gregory the Great, Pope St. Gregory the Great, said, now I will claim this church for Christ. And he came here and dedicated the church. There's a wonderful account in Book 3 of his dialogues. And he tells about the manifestations. Clearly there was a sense of Satan being put out of the church and of Christ taking possession of it. The people felt there was a pig running out of the church. The poor pig is a symbol of Satan, and the walls shook. And at the end of the ceremony, the candles refused to be extinguished. He took all of this to be a sign that Christ had claimed this church for himself. Anyway, with this facade is very beautiful. We see the image of St. Agatha, the classical iconography, the martyr's palm, and he's a virgin and martyr up at the very top of the facade. You see St. Agatha, virgin and martyr in Latin. But then the iconography, and she's holding a plate, and in the plate are her breasts, because one of the tortures to which they submitted her was they cut off her breasts. She was obviously a very beautiful young woman. The Romans who wanted to have her marry one of them, one of the officials, and at that she refused because she had made a vow of virginity. She had given her whole self to Christ, and for that they tortured her in various ways. They cut off her breasts, and eventually she was put to death. One beautiful part of the story is that after they cut off her breasts, St. Peter arrived in the night and appeared to her and restored them. But then they subjected her to rather cruel tortures, and she died. But anyway, we can go in then. Here you see some of from the old church, some of the stonework that's remaining, some inscriptions and so forth. And of the Barberini family and their famous coat of arms with the bees. You see them on the baldacchino in St. Peter's. On the columns are all these bees. That's from the Barberini family. And also you see here the Cross of Malta. And of course, this is a beautiful little courtyard. And this is a well. It doesn't function anymore, but it's a very beautiful feature of the courtyard. And this is a lovely place for people to gather. And now that's the coat of arms of the late Pope Francis. They'll be putting the new one up soon. And then my coat of arms has the titular cardinal of the church. The church is connected to what was a monastery. Then it was the Irish College for 100 years, from about 1825 to 1925. And now it's the general house of the Stigmatine Fathers, an order founded in Verona. And they had houses in the United States too. Right now they're very small in number in the United States, but especially in Massachusetts. They had one very noteworthy member, Father Cornelio Fabro, who was a world expert on St. Thomas Aquinas and has left about 50 volumes of his collected works. The Stigmatine Fathers put up. The Stigmatines thank His Eminence Raymond Leo Cardinal Burke, titular of the Basilica of St. Agatha, the Goths, and his friend, the friend Benefactors, for their restoration. We can go inside now. Now, this is the main body of the church, but the Blessed Sacrament is not on the high altar. We go over here to visit the Blessed Sacrament. The Blessed Sacrament is reserved in the tabernacle. There's a very beautiful statue of St. Agatha. Again, you see she has the martyr's palm and the plate with her breasts. And then here on the side is where the relics are kept of Greek martyrs. They were brought, these relics are very famous. It's a family of Greek martyrs, and also children, but they were martyred for their faith in Christ, and this church was honored by the Pope to be able to receive their relics. We celebrate their feast every year on December 2nd. There you see the classical altar with somewhat like our altar at the shrine, only in a different kind of stone. And
the wreath and the palms.
Yes. So, but after the council, they wanted to have these altars for what they call the people's altar, so Mass could be celebrated facing the people, and so these were added, but this would be very recent. Here are some, of course, just paintings, and we have more work to do too, to try to correct these. I'm very proud of this. The first thing that I did as Cardinal Patron was to put up a memorial for the ordination of Blessed Columba Marmion. He was a student here in the Irish College, and he was ordained a priest here on the 16th of June in 1881. And this the stone there gives a little bit of his life, and is to honor that event which took place here. This was actually designed by Duncan Strike, an American architect. He designed the monument, and then it was executed, of course, here in Italy. Now this is the main altar, this very classical form, and then the Relic of St. Agatha is in the main altar. This is a classical cathedra, and then with the seats for the choir, the priests who would be concelebrating. There we see St. Agatha being received into heaven by our Blessed Mother, the crown, the martyr's crown. St. Peter is there with his keys. It's rather giving the whole account of her life. And then you see two of the little symbols with the bees. So this was, and then here it recalls the story of how the Greek martyrs, how their relics, their bodies were brought here in not that long ago, 1933, with pomp and supplication. Joseph Rossino of Thessalonica, by mandate of the Cardinal Titular. This is not a parish church. It's called the Collegiate Church because it's the chapel for the Stigmatine Fathers. So, and they have Mass here every day, of course, and on Sundays, and people can come. But I come always for the Feast of St. Agatha, February 5th, and I'm not usually here anymore for the Feast of the Greek Martyrs because of my work at the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe. But sometimes groups come to Rome and they want me to have Mass for them. I have it here. And on July 5th this year, I'll have a solemn Mass here for my 50th anniversary of priesthood for Italian friends, especially for whom it's not possible to travel to La Crosse. And then St. Malachy, there's Lawrence O'Toole of Dublin, and they're turning on the lights for us now. That's very nice of them. And so that's something to, buongiorno. Come andiamo? This is the organ too, is a very fine organ, and we had that also, thanks to Benefactors, we had that restored. This cardinal here was very famous under the great Pope Pius XII, Cardinal Enrico Dante. This was his titular church too, but he was a great figure in that wonderful period in the church's history. He died in 1967. Here too is an English, we have an English inscription. Yes, there been to the memory of the Right Reverend Monsignor Murphy, who was a priest of the Diocese of Dublin and rector here until 1905. He was only 49 when he died. A warm friend, a true priest, a kindly superior. His loss was mourned by many, sorely felt by the students, over whom during 4 years he had well and wisely ruled. The Stigmatine Fathers, now that's their founder, who is a saint, so they appropriately have that imagery, great devotion to the Holy Family, and then the education of children. Let's see, what else are we missing? Then we have scenes from the life of St. Agatha. And the ceiling is very beautiful. It's that coffered ceilings that you see here in Italy. The inscription to Agatha, the most holy virgin and martyr, and a very strong martyr. Underneath are buried, this is the Antonelli family. That was their sepulcher. And so below there would be, I guess what we call not a mausoleum, but kind of like a catacomb in which where the bodies are buried. That was a practice that was done in churches. It could,
Very common.
yes. Here is another one here, Francesco Paolo Remoti. He just died in 1961. And then you can see on that inscription, Francesco Barberini. He was the one who led the restoration of this church, or the building of it in many respects, in 1633, if I'm reading correctly.
Yeah, that is rare.
So you see that Barberini connection. The heart of Daniel O'Connell, the famous Irish patriot, was here, was in this church. When they moved the Irish college, they built a new college, they took the stone that with the engraving about his heart, but nobody's ever found his heart.
Oh.
We tried, when I first came, we tried seeing if it could still be in the wall, but we don't find it. That's a sepulcher. We can look at it now. It's a Spanish from somebody from Catalonia, a little bit of the story of his life, and then he became the cardinal deacon of this church. His name was John Francis. This stone too commemorates how in former times Pope Gregory claimed it for Christ, and then how Cardinal Antonio Barberini redid it and amplified it. Every cardinal is given a church from the moment he's made a cardinal, because you become a priest of Rome. I'm no longer incarnated in the Archdiocese of St. Louis, where I went to be Archbishop, but I'm now, and so we have these churches, of course, because the cardinal has so many other duties. It's called titular in the sense the Stigmatine Fathers are taking care of the church all the time, but I'm to have a particular care for it, and that's why I want to try to help with some of the restorations. And so, first of all, St. Agatha the Great, martyr for the early church, one of the Roman martyrs. She was, in the days when we only prayed the Roman canon at Mass, she was mentioned every time the Holy Mass was offered. And I knew a bit of her story, and now I've studied more, and I'm just very edified.